Well, you mentioned Keystone. Let's start there. The Keystone Pipeline and perhaps Senator Mary Landrieu's shot at re-election have come up short in the Senate. The Senate bill came down to the wire last night, but ultimately came up just one vote short. Landrieu had predicted it would pass and made an impassioned speech before it failed.
The added benefits are these. We don't have to be dictated to by Russia and China. Hooray! We can also create jobs not just in the U.S., but in Mexico. Hooray! You know, people that can work in Mexico and have good jobs in Mexico might stay in Mexico. And hooray for that. Instead of desperately looking for work in the United States, it can help us solve some of our immigration problems. What is wrong with this?
Landrieu's runoff opponent in Louisiana, Republican Congressman Bill Cassidy, sponsored a version in the House that did pass. His campaign says the bill's failure in the Senate shows her lack of clout. In terms of immediate political implications, the Keystone Senate failure spares President Obama the use of a veto, but Republicans are vowing to try again when they take over in 2015. The State Department had said that crude extracted from tar sands in Canada causes more greenhouse gas emissions than the average barrel of crude, but using rail transportation options would actually create 42% more emissions than the pipeline, so the environmental issue.
Christina, is the State Department, we talked about this last hour, the State Department has 11 volumes of study. They find out that the pipeline would actually cut greenhouse gases by 42%. By 42%. And yet they push Mary Landrieu over a cliff.
And the argument that they're waiting on the Nebraska courts, you know, it's about, this is something that's been going on now for more than 3 years, and it's something in the White House, I mean, every time Barack Obama was at a college campus, you had people protesting this. You know, a lot of young people were really engaged on the issue, but she was able to get a lot of her Democrats on her side. I mean, right. Angus King of Maine was sort of
But why has this become so symbolic when the State Department says that it actually cuts greenhouse emissions 42% instead of by rail?
Right? It's become a symbol for Republicans of, you know, what they stand for versus what some Democrats stand for. And, you know, Mary Landrieu has been a champion of this for a long time. So this has really nothing to do with her
So where did the notion come from that somehow this was going to be her savior? I mean, there was nothing out there in the political ether that would indicate that Mary Landrieu was going to win this runoff to begin with. Right. So this Hail Mary pass from the Democrats on this issue really comes off as kind of, you know, what? Why?
I think it was her last shot.
Is the really? I mean, but was it a last shot, Joe?
I think so, yeah.
You think so? If it had passed, if she gotten that 60th vote, how would that have changed the dynamics on the ground? Does she then go from being 12 points down to being 6?
And her argument in the conference yesterday to the fellow Democrats was give it to the president to veto. That's okay. Like, this will help me to be able to say I champion this. And Bill Cassidy would be a vote for this. So even
but let's be clear, this bill is a bad idea. I mean, it exempts even the cleanup fund that's supposed to be there so that in case of spills. There have been other Keystone related spills that exist now. I mean, this thing, and it also it may cut greenhouse gases compared to if we do it compared to a trucking. But what if we just went toward renewables, which we really should be doing?
That's what the State Department said also in the study. Canada's going to do this. The question is, what's the cleanest way to get the oil out of the ground and get it shipped?
Well, like you said, it's not going to. This is not for American consumption. This is a pipeline through our country, not to our country. What's it going to do? I mean, so that's another thing. So it's not for us. Spill problems. We will have to bear the cost and the weight of that.
Well, you're talking
it's not going to help promote
but the study
renewables.
says that it's more environmentally safe than shipping this through rail lines and shipping this.
But Joe, what about the fact that this particular bill does not require them to fund the spill fund?
Well, I don't know.
That's a problem.
So why don't you put another bill on the floor today that will fund spill problems?
Because we're voting on this bill or not. Well, I mean, this is the thing we're dealing with.
Amend the bill.
What's that?
Amend the bill.
Is there something the president could ask for that would sweeten the deal for the Democrats? I mean, that's what sort of the reporting is, that, you know, perhaps they're holding out. They let the Republicans pass it in January, and then the president.
I think that's the question. So Keith, let me ask you this: well, you have something that actually would have less of an impact on the environment in this Keystone Pipeline. Would you, if Republicans said, okay, let's make a trade, You give us Keystone, we will agree to raise minimum wage to $9.50. Well, that make sense?
Well, you know what? I wouldn't make that trade. Because,
why not?
Well, because I think that we're talking about increasing greenhouse gas emissions.
No, we're not. We're talking about reducing greenhouse gases.
We are, because there are other ways to do it. I've read it.
No, you haven't.
I have read it.
Or you wouldn't say what you just said.
No, but because I don't assume that we have to use this kind of oil. I think we need to do renewables. No, we need to do renewable energy.
What are we going to do? Chew bubble gum really fast?
Well, how about solar? How about wind? How about all these things?
I'm all for it. But in 2014, this is going to continue, Keith, and you know that.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, a lot of things, right? Because I think it has a lot to do with what world prices of oil are, how expensive is it to extract this form of oil. This is a complicated mixture. But one thing's for sure, China is trying to lead the world in renewables. We need to be trying to do the same thing.
I agree.
We need to be making those kind of investments as opposed to more the dirtiest kind of stuff that we can find on the planet.
Well, we're going to be the #1 producer of oil by 2020.
Yep.
Fracking has opened up possibilities for natural gas exploration, and it's going to create an economic revival in this country. What side are the Democrats going to be on that?
Well, look, I think that...
is it a good or bad thing that we're going to be the #1 producer of oil in 2020?
I think that the United States producing energy that it can rely on and doesn't have to depend on foreign sources for is a good thing. But I don't think we have to just say it's a good thing and it's over. We need to be pursuing renewables in an aggressive way.
Flexible.
All of the above. I've always approached
the here and now. You have this right here and now, and so you're just going to let it sit?
This isn't really fair for us.
Another thing,
Keith's in a tough position. Yeah. Let's. You feel like
the job numbers are inflated too, by the way.
Republicans.
The
job numbers are
inflated. It's a job boom, that Keystone. Millions. It's going to save the economy.
Are you saying,
right,
except for it's not?
Are you saying Barack Obama's State Department's lying?
I'm just saying.
No, they're telling the truth. They're saying that permanent jobs are 50.
What did I say?
No.
Well, I'm just concerned about the environment, and maybe nobody else is, but I look at these studies, and I'm moved by science, and the 11 volumes of study in Barack Obama's State Department says that this is going to reduce greenhouse gases, this approach, 42% more than the other approach. But if Democrats don't believe in science, Robert, it makes me sad, but I'll just have to deal with it.
I think, again, to reiterate what I was trying to do in the first hour, what I think the Congressman is saying here is your assumption is that the oil is coming out of the ground. And I think some people that want to see huge progress on climate change believe that the refining of tar sands oil in and of itself is something that we ought to be weaning ourselves off of.
I agree.
Let's be clear. Burning the oil does not save greenhouse gases. The assumption in the study was that the oil was being used, and therefore the transportation...
Is that assumption wrong? We're going to have the ambassador to the United States from Canada on. We can ask him.
Our assumption on what domestic energy we use is our assumption. It doesn't have to be an assumption we start with. Look, if we're going to cut greenhouse gases...
With all due respect, you guys are talking in circles. This is going to happen. Canada's going to take it out of the ground.
And our question...
Yes, they are.
And our question is...
How can you say they're not?
The assumption of what we use domestically to fuel our economy is based on what we decide we want it to be.
Right, I'm talking about Canada. They're going to get this out of the ground. And the question is, how are they going to ship it?
Right.
At this point, I'm boring even myself, so let's move on, because it seems so patently obvious, but
well, why don't they just go through Vancouver as such an awesome idea?
There you go.
They could.
Okay.
I mean, if you want Vancouver...
Because it's too expensive to do it that way, apparently.
If you want Vancouver to...
So it all kind of changes.
Have the job. Maybe Richard Trumka doesn't know what's best for the workers of the AFL-CIO. Maybe the union members who want this.
And we started this in the last conversation. I think this is a very different issue for a lot of people. I don't think this is a Democrat-Republican issue. I don't think this is a Mary Landrieu. You set this up originally as a Mary Landrieu versus other Democrats. I think this is an issue that's very, very regional, and it's not sort of monolithic on either side of it.
The unions want it done, Mika.